Welcome back to part 2 of the little tiny big knife build. We are ready to quench this thing, and that's exactly what we gonna be doing in this here episode. We are going to get it normalized, and we're going to quench, temper, grind, do the handle, shape it all up to make a little tiny big knife in this episode. I am pumped. And right behind me, we have the forge, cold and dead. But we gonna throw some flame to it and get it going. And we're going to start by normalizing this steel. This is steel that I have bought and has probably been spheroidized and annealed, as it was easy to drill holes and cut out. So we're going to start with a round of normalizing using the book that I got and the newest addition to the efforts to better my knives, the temp gun that I just got offline. So utilizing the information in the book and checking the temperatures with the gun, we're going to be shooting for a fantastically hard blade with excellent properties. All right, so this is clearly to the Curie point here of non-magnetic. And I'm having some trouble with the heat gun picking up the correct temperature. I've tried up close, I've tried far away. It's just not reading what I think is proper. There's no way that that metal is 700 degrees if it's non-magnetic. That just doesn't make sense. So perhaps I am using it wrong. I don't know. I read the pamphlet and not really having much luck with it yet. I guess I'll have to play around with it some. Even from back here, that forge is pretty good and warm now. Get the laser on there. It's definitely hotter than 130 degrees. Get a little closer, 170. Get a little further away, it jumps up. But it's still, it's got to be hotter than 800 degrees in there. There's 950. So it's just really, really sporadic. Maybe it's a setting or something. I'm not sure. If you know, post it down in the comments. What am I doing wrong? I have no idea. So that's kind of about where I judge to be about 1600 degrees or so. So we're going to pull it out and let it do its thing for the first round of normalizing. Okay, so we've done our rounds of normalizing and we're getting ready to quench. This thing, I don't really trust this thing. It's pretty inaccurate. It's giving some really strange readings. Yeah, so we're just going to use the eyeballs and see what happens here. Yeah, so I feel like that went pretty good. The color looked about right. The behavior of the quench was about normal to what I'm used to. Not really a big flame up or anything. I definitely don't think we were overheated. We should have been right about at the temperature that we were aiming for. Yeah, just kind of I'm not disappointed, but I guess I'll just have to look more into the pyrometer or the thermostat guns and kind of try to learn more about it, because it was all over the place. I tried shooting the forge, I tried shooting the blade outside of the forge, inside of the forge, far away, close up. I tried different settings. got a very, very, very small warp. We're just going to give it a little bit of a squeeze. And break the tang. Well, shit balls. That sucks. But you know what? Check out the grain. The grain looks pretty freaking good. Nice and matte. Oh boy. Yeah. So that last clip there was me breaking the tang to the knife. Snapperoonie. So yeah, that really stinks.
Cried like a baby.
Happened several days ago, and since then I've been kind of tinkering around with this thing. Took another piece of steel, kind of shaped out a tang size, welded it on there, and then cleaned it back up to where we've got the guard fitting up nice and tight again. We'll have to go in and kind of recondition the blade. We needed to do that anyway, so that's not a big deal. I was very careful while I was welding to keep the blade portion cool. Of course, it did get hot here in the thick part of the, I guess that's the ricasso. And we do have a bit of the cutting edge there. But anyway, I did my best to keep it cool. I don't think it got overheated, and probably didn't mess with it too bad. And by golly, we set out to make a tiny baby knife, and we're going to do it. So I've got the new tang on there. We're going to go ahead and proceed and pretend that didn't happen. Right? Nobody saw that, right? Okay, let's keep going. So, yeah, pretty much ready to move to the next phase now, which would be re-drilling the hole for the handle. We had that portion done on this old one, but we'll just go ahead and pop a new hole and move on from there. When I did weld it there to the ricasso, you could see the almost like tempering colors run through the metal on up into the cutting edge down here a little bit. So, you know, technically, if I was going to be selling this knife, or if I was a professional, I would reheat treat it. I'm not. I am a dude in a lawnmower shed making knives. So I know that the front of the blade, the belly, and almost all the way up to where my thumb is at is still good hard steel. So there's just this little tiny bit back here that may have been compromised. I don't care. It's not that big a deal to me. So, you know, I think we're going to go ahead and proceed with this. And now that we're back here in the shop, I am using the 1x30 to kind of raise the bevels back up some. But if you've ever owned a 1x30, you know that they run super duper fast. And then once you start getting up into the high grits, like the 120, 240, that sort of thing, running a very high grit belt at a very high speed, creating more heat. So this thing heats up incredibly fast, even with a couple of runs along the belt when it's going at such a high speed. So at this stage in the game where we're starting to get close to the cutting edge and developing an apex, we really want to avoid that. So that's where something like the 2x42 comes in super handy, where you can kick it on and have it run really, really slow. And that way you're still taking metal off and kind of refining the edge, but you're not in danger of overheating it. The last update that I gave you guys about this was that the motor was running warm and kind of running rough. It's still running, so you can hear it in the background there. It works okay. I just need to kind of be careful and watch the heat of the motor, so I'm, you know, making sure that I'm good with that. But in one video that I made just recently, I think it was a short, I talked about how to pretty much replace the platen, the existing platen that was on it, that it came with, was pretty much just this little bit of very thin plate steel here. And it had a bunch of area over here that was just in the way. So we cut all this out for the first time and tried to then use this super thin strip here as the platen, and that just didn't work very well. So in the last short that I put out, we talked about how to put a big thick piece of plate steel onto it just by tapping a couple of bolts here in the back and you know, threading out the actual plate steel to put this on. I've also noticed too, I've been watching other reviews on this grinder, and a lot of people say that this little sticker here, this graphite coated sticker, is crap and trash. And you know, for what they do, is it the coolest thing ever? No. Does it have a place? Absolutely. I would definitely not throw this thing away. I have found a really good use for it. And what that use is when I'm in here on the bevels and I'm grinding along this hard metal here, it's very easy to get different grind lines. I'm not talking about the scratches. I'm talking about like actual kind of differences in angles, and especially because I'm doing it freehand. Once you establish the bevel, it's pretty straightforward and somewhat easy to keep this angle just by pushing on the actual knife blade. I'm trying to get a good shot here to kind of help describe what I'm talking about. But okay, here's a good example. So I'm pushing against the flats of the knife here, and you can see that the bevel is not flat against the platen. But then when you go to push on the actual bevel, it turns that angle in to the platen and then gives room for the flats to not hit the belt. Well, doing that with just this metal, it works, but it gives little inconsistencies in the angle. And so where I think this little sticker has a place is once you get up into the higher grits, if you come and stick it back on here, and then you go and do this, what it does is it kind of softens the belt touching against, you know, the back of that platen. It softens up the grind line, so you don't have a whole lot of differences in your angles. Like you can kind of see here, I was starting to get off by having different angles at the end, but I tried sticking this platen back on here, or the this little sticker thing back on here, and that really helps to smooth everything out and get it pretty, you know, even as it moves down the bevel. So I really do think that if you mess around with that little sticker, you'll find some uses for it. That's kind of what I use it for, is just to, it's almost like a softer version of a hard platen, and it's good for kind of meshing in everything, especially when you get up to the higher grits. So anyway, I thought that was worth noting, especially if you have this machine or some sort of a setup like a, you know, a 1x30 where you've just got the metal platen. What I used to do for this one is tape a piece of cardboard in between here, and that kind of acted like the same thing. Now it's not, you know, necessary for hogging off material and stuff, but when you get close to finishing out a blade, I really do think that that has a purpose and a spot, and it's definitely helped me. So I just wanted to pass that information along. We're going to go ahead and continue with this. It's still pretty rough, but we're going to make our way to getting it further cleaned up, and then we'll be ready to glue up this handle. Okay, so just got done spending some time hand sanding and cleaning up the bevels. They're looking pretty good. And we're now ready to move to gluing up the handle. So we're going to go ahead and do that, and then I'll be back out tomorrow to start shaping the handle. And we'll get it shaped tomorrow, put an edge on it, and wrap this build up.
man. You call that a knife?
No, little green man, I call this my sword.
That looks like a tiny baby knife from French's Forge. That's not a real sword. If Dagmar Kaita was here, he would say, that will cut. The cheese because it stinks. That won't cut anything. You think you're going to defeat me with that little tiny knife?
You know what, little green goblin? If Dagmar Kaita was here, he would say, it will cut. More than the cheese, I have paper right here in my hand. You just hush and watch this. You see that, green man? It does cut. And it also will kill.
Alright, so that concludes the Tiny Big Knife build. And He-Man and Green Goblin aside, I think it turned out really cool. It's definitely a tiny big knife. I think we succeeded in our goal to make a very large shaped knife into a tiny little chopper. In fact, it's so small that it doesn't really even fit in my hand. So yeah, what was kind of the point of this? I don't even know. You know, sometimes you just come up with an idea and you go with it. So will I be using this knife in the real world to cut stuff with? Probably not. But it is pretty stinking cute. So I am glad that we made it to this point and got it finished out. Especially with all the troubles that we had with the tang and you know, overcoming some of the obstacles that I ran into. It was a really fun learning process. I feel like I have a couple more steps down a little bit more than I did before this build. So yeah, I had a lot of fun doing it, and it's quite the cool looking little baby knife. I've got the kind of the forged texture up here. Let me do the lights here, might help a little bit. Kind of got the forged texture up here on the spine. It's kind of hard to zoom in, but anyway, it's yeah, kind of that rough look up on the spine here, and then everything else is pretty smooth. The bevels turned out really good. They're nice and crispy and straight on both sides. And overall, it's just got like a really cool flow to it. It's almost like reminds me of like an Arabian sword or something. Yeah, so anyway, turned out really cool. I had tons of fun, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Hopefully you learned something from it or got some entertainment from it. And will it cut paper? Well, He-Man says yes. I say yes. It's a pretty good paper cutter, so it's definitely sharp. I don't know, with the grip being so small, I don't know how much stuff I'll be actually cutting with it, but it's a nice little wall hanger. So it's going to go up here in the forge and remind me of the fun time that I had making it. So anyway, appreciate you guys tuning in, and we will catch you on the next one. I'm not sure what I'll be doing. I have a couple of different things in mind, but both ideas are really cool, so either one that I pick is going to be awesome. So be sure and be on the lookout for the next video. Hopefully I'll have that one coming out here in a week or so. And hope you have a great dang day. We'll catch you on the next one. Freaking forward out.